midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently, gently, gently. So I moved it slowly, 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 so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha!
Would a madman have been wise as this?
When my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern.
Cautiously.
Oh,
So,
cautiously.
for
The hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye, and this I did for 7 long nights.
Every night, just at midnight.
But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him,
calling him by name in a hearty tone,
and inquiring how he has passed the night.
So you see, he would have been a very profound old man.
To suspect that every night, just at 12.
I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers.
I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph.
To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was black as pitch, with thick darkness, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing on it, steadily, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed.
Who's there?
I kept quite still, and said nothing for a whole hour.
I did not move a muscle.
In the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in bed listening, just as I had done, night after night. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or grief.
Oh, no.
It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul.
I say I knew it well.
I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been saying to himself,
It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor.
It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp.
yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the shadow of death that caused him to feel,
Although he neither saw nor heard.
to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, I resolved to open a little.
A very, very little crevice in the lantern.
So I opened it,
You cannot imagine how stealthily,
until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out and fell full upon the vulture eye.
it was open.
Wide, wide open!
And I grew furious as I gazed upon it.
I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it.
that chilled the very marrow in my bones.
But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon that damned spot.
And have I not told you what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the sense?
Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound. I knew that sound well. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, but even yet, I refrained and kept still.
I scarcely breathed. It grew quicker,
Quicker,
and louder,
Louder.
every moment.
The old man's terror must have been extreme.
It grew louder, I say, louder every moment.
I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor.
The old man's hour had come.
I threw open the lantern and leapt into the room. He shrieked once.
Only once.
In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him.
I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done.
For many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound.
At length, it ceased.
The old man was dead.
I removed the bed and examined the corpse.
Yes, he was dead, stone dead.
I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation.
His eye would trouble me no more.
If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body.
The night waned, and I worked hastily.
But in silence.
First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and the arms, and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, and deposited it all. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye
Not even his.
could have detected anything wrong.
There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind. I had been too wary for that.
When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock.
Bung, 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 bung.
As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door.
I
I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 2 men who introduced themselves as officers of the police.
A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged with the police office, and they had been deputed to search the premises.
I smiled.
For what had I to fear?
I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek
I said,
was my own in a dream. The old man
I mentioned.
was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search. I led them to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, undisturbed. I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues. I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim.
The officers were satisfied.
My manner had convinced them. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things.
But I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone.
My head ached. I had a ringing in my ears.
But still they sat, and still they chatted.
The ringing became more distinct as I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling. But I continued and gained definiteness until at length
I found that the noise was not within my ears.
No doubt, I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles, and in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. But the noise rose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard it not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder, 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 I shrieked.
Villains, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here.
is the beating of his hideous heart.
Whoa. That was